local 80s slasher library. I'm your host, the 80s slasher librarian. Tonight's sinister selection is Halloween, The Scream Factory, Chapter 7. Jake pulled up in front of City Hall on his motorcycle. He was glad that he'd taken the time off this morning to recharge the battery and was relieved that it was only a minor problem. Matt's Jeep was parked out front. Jake felt a pang of anticipation as he thought about Lori. He hoped she liked the song he'd put together last night. He took off his helmet and walked up the long staircase toward the entrance of the old building. Sally, Lori, and Matt were busy in the basement opening dusty boxes of junk that Mayor Jameson had gotten out of storage cage for the kids to use as props for the haunted house. The boxes were filled with old paper plates, cans of paint, clothing, curtains, and hundreds of other discarded items. Mayor Jameson handed Sally a fat, petty cash envelope filled with crisp $20 bills. He told her, "This is for buying refreshments and to get flyers printed to advertise the event. This is all the money we have to work with. You must provide receipts for each and every purchase. There's a shopping list inside for the bare essentials. We'll have to get those. Spend it wisely. That's all we've got." Lori asked, "Mayor Jameson, is it okay if we have a live rock band play at the party? Our friend offered to play." The mayor rubbed his chin. "A live band? That's a good idea and would possibly draw a pretty large crowd. It's fine with me as long as they can bring their own equipment." He looked at his watch. "I've got to get going, kids. Keep me updated on your progress." The mayor walked up the stairs and nearly crashed right into Jake, who was standing at the top. Excuse me," Jake said politely as the mayor hurried off to his office. Jake smiled as he looked down at Lori. His tall frame almost filled the doorway. He pointed to a large cardboard box that he'd brought in. "I brought a surprise." His eyes searched the room. "So this is it?" he asked. Matt complained. "Yeah, this is going to be a lot of work. Just look at this place." "Jake, the mayor said you and your band can play. Isn't that great?" Lori called as she watched Jake lug the heavy box down the stairs. He pulled the box across the floor. "Cool. I'll call the guys later and tell them the good news. So, what did you think of the tape?" he asked. Lori felt foolish for thinking that Jake might have been following her, and was glad that she didn't mention it to anyone. "It's really good, and it's spooky. Does all your music sound like that?" Jake laughed. No. That was just something I put together for the haunted house. Most of our stuff is just good old rock and roll." Jake looked around the basement. "Did the mayor say where he wanted us to set up on the stage?" Matt pointed. "What about over there in the storage cage?" he explained. "There's plenty of room in there. If we move out the boxes and we can decorate it so it looks like you and your band are monsters in a giant cage, you know." "Yeah," Sally added. "We can line up the filing cabinets so that the maze ends right by the band. They can follow the music to the end of it." Matt pointed to the huge box Jake had dragged in. "What's in there? A dead body?" Jake grinned. "It's better. Just a little something I borrowed from the theater." Lori looked at the box and then at Jake. "How'd you get it here? On your motorcycle?" "No, I borrowed my buddy's pickup," he explained. "So what's inside?" Lori questioned. "It looks so heavy." "I'll let Matt do the honors," Jake said, handing Matt his Swiss Army knife. Matt cut the tape and Sally dug in, struggling to pull something heavy out of the box. "Grab that end," Matt told her. "Ow!" Sally cried. She pulled her fingers from the box to reveal a small cut dripping with blood. Matt heaved the item out of the box and set it on the floor. Jake rushed over. "Sally, are you okay?" he asked, feeling guilty that he hadn't warned them. "That thing is sharp. I'm sorry." Lori stared at the blade of the old guillotine on the floor. "Yuck. Is that thing real?" I don't think so," Jake answered. "They use it as a prop over at the theater. But it's about as close to the real thing as you can get." Sally sucked her finger. "Look what it did to me!" She eyed the crude metal blade with fear. "I don't think it would be a good idea to have this thing out at the party. Someone could get hurt." "We'll just put some silver duct tape over the blade part and secure it so it can't fall down. This is perfect for the Scream Factory, guys, I'm telling you, Matt said. Lori stepped away from the blade, looking disgusted. I wonder how many people have had their heads chopped off with something like that. I don't know, it gives me the creeps. Jake laughed. Yeah, it is pretty scary. Matt held the little knife in the palm of his hand. Thanks, man, he said. Mind if I borrow it a little longer? The knife is just what I need to start digging into all these other boxes. This is going to be the best haunted house ever, Lori commented. Hey, Jake, would you design our flyer for the Scream Factory? We need a really creepy-looking haunted house with this time and the address on it. Oh, I need to take it to the printer tonight. Jake winked. Are you saying my art is creepy? Lori blushed. No, you're just a good artist. Come on. You know I didn't mean anything by that. Jake was flattered that she even knew that he was an artist. Of course I'll do it. I'd better get started right now so I can make my deadline. Thanks. Lori looked over at Matt and Sally, who were pulling old costumes out of a box. Matt threw on a red cape and mask. Sally fell into his arms. My hero, she cried in her most theatrical voice. My darling. Matt dipped her backward, giving her a long kiss. Lori cleared her throat. Come on, you two. We've got a lot of work to do. Let's start throwing these old curtains and sheets over the filing cabinets. Sally pulled a dusty piece of drapery from a box. Matt began rearranging the cabinets into a series of twisting and turning walls while the girls threw sheets over the top of them. Within an hour, Jake had completed the flyer, and the maze was all set up. The four kids sat on some cardboard boxes. Sally looked at Jake's artwork. This is great. It looks so professional, Jake. Well, thanks, Jake said. I've always loved art. He stole a glance at Lori and smiled shyly. You guys did a great job on the maze, you know. Want to take me for a tour? He tried, throwing out a spooky voice at the end. Lori stood smiling and took him by the hand. Right this way. All we have to do now is decorate it. Ouch! He cried. Lori felt his hand jerk away from hers. He held up his bandaged hand. Sorry, he smiled. It's still a little sore. He grabbed her hand with his other. Lori held her breath, wondering again how he'd hurt it. Jake, she asked, what happened to your hand? She had to know if he was the one following her last night. He gave her fingers a little squeeze that made her break out in goosebumps. Nothing, he answered quickly. Just a little accident. Accident, she thought. She pressed on. What kind of accident? Jake's face turned red. The bike fell over on me when I was working on it this morning. That's all, he said. Lori sighed, relaxing a little. Come on, she told him. Jake followed her through the dim twist of the maze, feeling electrified. The sun was going down outside, and with every precious second, the darkness of night creeped in through the basement windows. At the end of the maze, Jake stopped. Suddenly, and without thinking of the consequences, he pulled Lori close to him and kissed her on the mouth. He felt her body go rigid, and then relax as she began to kiss him back. Jake stopped and pushed her away, hoping he hadn't frightened her. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. Lori, still lightheaded from the rush of adrenaline, smiled. No, Jake, I'm glad you did. Jake wanted to hold her, to kiss her again, but he stopped himself. It's getting dark. I'd better go over to the printer before they close so our flowers will be ready by tomorrow morning, he said. Lori took a deep breath. Okay, get some petty cash from Sally. She gave his hand a little squeeze. I'll see you tomorrow. She watched Jake disappear through the maze as she leaned against a filing cabinet, feeling dazed by his powerful kiss. Outside the building, a dark shape emerged from the woods, peering at the dim lights glowing in the basement. He'd followed their light, tinkling laughter through the darkness. He was close enough now to hear the voices of teenagers, talking and laughing. Slowly and carefully, he moved closer. The sound of breaking glass echoed through the basement. What was that? Matt said, jumping to his feet. Lori asked nervously. Jake left already, didn't he? Sally stood behind Matt. Yeah, he's gone. He's long gone. Sally pointed to the corner window. It came from over there. Look, the window is shattered. Matt pulled a black mask over his face, looking ridiculous. Have no fear, ladies. Matt Man is here. Sally rolled her eyes at Lori as Matt charged off through the maze singing, Here I come to save the day. The girls timidly followed behind him. Matt, be careful back there, Sally called. The room was silent. Lori yelled. Matt, where are you? Did you find anything? Matt! Sally looked up at the broken window with a concerned expression. Matt, are you okay, honey? As they walked through the final turn in the maze, Matt suddenly popped up. Boo! The girls screamed. Sally was furious. You jerk! You scared us to death! Matt cackled. That was the idea. This is the exact spot I'm going to hide when the kids come through the maze. Lori took a deep breath. What about the window? Did you find anything? The cold wind whistled through the basement. Nothing but broken glass. Someone broke it from the outside. Who would do such a thing? And why? Sally asked. The lights went out, leaving them in total darkness. Lori made a little swallowing noise and whispered, What if it's Michael Myers? Would you please shut up, Lori? Matt snapped. Michael Myers doesn't exist. Read my lips. He's fake. A scratching sound came from the window. Sally was about to scream when the power groaned back on. Lori grabbed Sally and Matt. Let's get out of here. Matt and Sally agreed, and the three of them left. Matt flicked off the basement lights. Sally turned around to take one last look at the maze before they shut the door. In a blur, a white face peered through the broken window, staring into the dark basement. Chapter 8. Lori and Sally stood in the school courtyard the following morning. Sally pointed. Look, there's Jake. He looks fine today. Lori felt flushed as she watched him walk across the grass. He wore a pair of faded jeans and a dark green sweater, which made his blonde, longish hair look like gold in the morning sunlight. Wow, she said, breathing out. He sure is a good kisser, Lori commented and waited for Sally's reaction. What? When did this happen? Sally asked. Lori giggled. In the maze? He grabbed me with those strong arms and kissed me. He said he couldn't stop himself. Sally's eyes opened wide. Oh my gosh, this is better than those romance novels, she squealed. Sally fanned herself with one hand. He couldn't stop himself. His burning desire was unleashed. His passion was uncontrollable. Lori shot her a warning look. Be quiet. Here he comes. Good morning, ladies, Jake said. He proudly showed them the flyers for the Scream Factory, which he had had printed on bright orange paper. Wow, these look great. I can't wait to start handing them out, said Lori. Jake gave each of the girls a stack and handed Sally the receipt. He rolled up the sleeves of his sweater. I was going to slip them in everybody's locker at lunch today. He pointed to the bottom corner of the flyer, where he'd added the little picture of his band. I hope you don't mind. I just wanted to get a little exposure. Sally raised her eyebrows, trying to imagine Jake kissing Lori. You're quite the marketing man as well as an artist. Is there anything you don't do? Jake winked. I don't do windows. Hey, I'll see you two later. The girls giggled to themselves as Jake walked away. Lori looked curiously at Sally. So do you think he's boyfriend material? She asked. Sally lowered her eyes with an annoyed look on her face. As if I already have a boyfriend. I meant for me, asshole, Lori laughed. Sally nudged her playfully. Sure, why not? He's cute, and he can't seem to keep his hot lips off of you. Lori looked at her stack of flyers, ignoring Sally's immature teasing. Shall we? We've still got 15 minutes before first period. The two girls stood in front of the main entrance, passing out the orange papers. Students eagerly grabbed them up as they poured into the building. Lori pointed. Uh-oh, here comes trouble. Marcia Miller, dressed in an expensive black dress, pushed her way through the courtyard towards Sally and Lori with 3 of her friends. Marcia sneered, grabbing a flyer from Sally, causing her to drop the entire stack. Marcia growled, "So, you're the one having the losers-only party? I should have known. We'll just see where Matt winds up, won't we?" Sally laughed in her face. "What's the matter, Marcia? Afraid no one will show up at your party now? The whole school will be at City Hall, including Matt." "In your dreams, you dweeb," Marcia spat out. 2 football players stopped to help Sally pick up her scattered flyers. One of them looked at Marcia. "Hey, thanks for the invitation, Marcia, but we can't make it. Maybe we'll catch you later at the Scream Factory. Everyone's talking about the live band that's playing. I've heard they're really good." Enraged, Marcia pushed her way past Sally, almost knocking her over. Marcia tossed her hair over her shoulder and shot an evil glare at her rival. Lori giggled. "Success is the best revenge." Sally continued handing flyers to students as they walked past her. "Yeah, I had no idea it would be such a big hit. But how did word get around so fast?" Lori pointed to the student parking lot, where orange papers dotted most of the car windshields. They laughed together. "Jake!" At lunch, Sally went off campus with Matt to grab a burger. Lori combed the cafeteria and halls until she finally caught up with Jake, who was posting a flyer on the school notice board. He turned around as she called his name. "Hey, Jake." Jake grinned at her as he stepped back to look at the flyer on the board. "Hey, Lori, how's it going?" She stared at him for a moment. He'd changed somehow, she thought. She smiled, ignoring the uneasy feeling. "The response to our party is going great. I've had people coming up to me all day letting me know they'll be there." Jake stuffed his hands in his pockets. "Yeah, I know. I feel like some kind of celebrity all of a sudden. People I don't even know, which is almost everybody, are talking to me now and asking me about my band. I don't feel invisible anymore, you know?" 2 cheerleaders walked past Jake and smiled. The tall brunette shook her pom-poms at him playfully. "Hi, Jake," they called. His face reddened as they passed by. "You see what I mean? This is amazing. Thanks a lot, Lori, for everything." Lori fluffed her hair when he wasn't looking. She wondered if he would move on to greener pastures now that the whole school, especially the girls, were noticing him. "You're welcome, but I really didn't do anything." Jake put his hands on her shoulders and stared at her intensely. "You've done everything. You saw something in me when everyone else just passed me by. Didn't you?" His gaze was hypnotic. "Yes," she admitted. "I just never had the nerve to say anything." Jake leaned close to her face and whispered, "I've been watching you for a long time, but I never could bring myself to talk to you. I figured a beautiful girl like you would just laugh at me, or worse. You make me happy, Lori." As he parted his lips to kiss her, 2 freshman boys walked up to them, both wearing black band t-shirts and jeans. "Look, it's Jake," one of them whispered. The one with glasses said. "Hey, man, heard your band's pretty cool. We'll see you Halloween." Jake and Lori laughed as they walked down the hall, slipping flyers into more lockers. Sally hopped out of Matt's Jeep, stuffing the last bite of hamburger into her mouth. "I've got to stop by my locker before class. I'll meet you after school," she called, still chewing. She blew him a little kiss. Sally ran to her locker and struggled to pry it open. She only had a minute to get to class. The flimsy locker door flew open. Sally screamed. Inside the locker sat a huge jack-o'-lantern with a grotesquely carved face and a large butcher knife through its eye. The knife pinned to the pumpkin one of the orange flyers, which had the word revenge written across it, in what appeared to be fresh blood. Taped over Matt's picture, there was a little note, written in the same scratchy writing. Sally's hands trembled as she grabbed the note and read, "You'll be the only one screaming at the Scream Factory. This Halloween will be your last." Sally left the locker open and ran to the bathroom, feeling as if she were going to be sick. She splashed cold water on her face and looked up into the mirror. Her skin looked pale. She took a deep breath, rationally deciding to report the incident to the principal. The bell rang and the halls were deserted. Sally walked quickly towards her locker, the metal door still hanging open. She forced herself to glance at it as she walked by. A sinking feeling swept through her body. The locker was completely empty except for her picture of Matt, which had been crumpled and thrown down on the floor. Panic set in. Flashes of the Haddonfield Halloween murder victims, the school pictures that were printed in the old newspaper articles, all appeared in her mind. The jack-o'-lantern was the trademark of Michael Myers. They never found his body, and it was almost Halloween. Am I going insane, she thought, the horrible prank still fresh in her mind. A prank. It's just a stupid prank, she tried to convince herself, but not doing a very good job of it. In history class, Sally stared at the blackboard, unable to concentrate. She chewed her nails, a habit she'd broken nearly a year ago. Sally briefly filled Lori in on the disturbing locker incident and suggested that maybe they call the party off. Lori looked at her in disbelief. What? Some idiot is just trying to scare you. I can't believe that you're letting this get to you. Trust me. Lori peered across the room and lowered her voice to a whisper. No one is out to get you, except maybe her. She glanced at Marcia, who was writing something in her notebook. It hadn't occurred to Sally that Marcia might be behind this. Yeah, it all made sense now. Marcia was certainly low enough to pull a childish stunt like that. The class bell rang. Sally jumped out of her seat to catch up with Marcia. She tapped her on the shoulder. Hey, Marcia, I got your little Halloween bouquet. You're really desperate, aren't you? Marcia jerked away from Sally, her nostrils flaring. Don't you ever touch me, you disgusting little slut. I have no idea what you're talking about. Just leave me alone or you'll be hearing from my lawyer. Your lawyer? Sally laughed. Give me a break. I should be the one telling you to leave me alone. And I mean it. Stop the stupid pranks. I know you're the one who called me, and I know you put the threat in my locker, so just back off. A small crowd was gathering around the girls. Someone yelled catfight. Sally felt her adrenaline pumping as Marcia shoved her hard in the chest. It's your move, bitch, she sneered. The crowd had grown from 5 to 30 students within seconds. They cheered them on. Sally, blinded by rage, lost all control and raised her fist. Lori grabbed Sally from behind just before she could take a swing and dragged her backward through the crowd. Sally, get a grip on yourself, please. Marcia threw her leather backpack over her shoulder and called out casually, See you later, losers. Sally's heart pounded as she watched Marcia glide away down the hall, as if nothing had happened. The bloodthirsty crowd broke up as Lori waved her arms angrily and called out, Go on, you dorks, the show is over. Chapter 9. Matt was sitting in his Jeep waiting in front of the school for the girls. He stared at Sally's beet-red face. Her fists and teeth were still clenched in anger. What's wrong with you? He asked. Your ex-girlfriend attacked me. That's what's wrong, she said with a hint of blame in her shaky voice. Matt looked surprised. Marcia? No kidding? What'd you say to her? I don't believe this, Sally cried. I tell you I've been attacked, and you ask me what I said to her. Well, the answer is nothing. Absolutely nothing. Matt could see how upset she was by the tears that were welling up in her green eyes. He placed his hands on her knee. Sorry, Sally, he said. It's just that I've never seen her act like that before. Are you okay? Lori couldn't believe that Matt was being so dense. She angrily spoke up in Sally's defense. Marcia has been threatening us for days. She really steamed about our party because practically the whole school will be there. We think she put the death threat in Sally's locker. Death threat? Matt said. He looked at Sally for an explanation. Sally told him about the pumpkin and message she'd found in her locker after lunch. Matt was deeply disturbed by the similarities between what Sally described and the jack-o'-lantern and writing on the wall he'd seen in the old Myers place a few days earlier. Sally added, And on top of that, whoever put it in my locker stole all of my books. They even tore down your picture and crumpled it up. Matt didn't know what to think. After all, he'd dated Marcia for a few months and she'd never done anything truly mean to him, except when he broke up with her. He'd called it off after she'd started telling him what to wear and who to socialize with. Matt didn't like being pushed around by anyone. He remembered his part-time job at the hardware store, which was owned by Marcia's uncle. The day after he broke up with her, he was fired, or laid off, as they'd worded it. Matt asked, "Did you report it to the principal or anyone?" "No. My locker was totally empty when I returned. I don't know what to think. It was so horrible," Sally said. Jake Kovac pulled up beside the Jeep. He lifted his helmet. "Hey, guys. Are you on your way to City Hall?" Lori sat up in the back seat, looking at Jake. He looked fabulous, and a little dangerous, sitting on the leather seat of his motorcycle. "Yeah?" she cried over the rumbling of his engine. "We'll see you there." Jake motioned for Lori to join him. "How about a ride on the wild side?" "Sounds great," she answered, licking her lips as she climbed out of the Jeep. Jake handed Lori a helmet and mounted the back of the bike, the vibrating chrome adding to her excitement. She waved at Sally and Matt. "We'll meet you," she said, and hugged Jake's lean body, as they pulled away from Haddonfield High, disappearing down the road. Jake yelled over the sound of the engine. "Let's stop by my house. There's something there I need to get." "Okay," Lori shouted. She clasped her hands together around Jake's waist, watching the trees of the thickly wooded forest move past as they rode, the bike hugging the curves of the gently sloped road. They rounded the corner onto Ripley Road. Jake sped up a little as they approached the old Myers house. It still looked creepy, even in broad daylight, Lori thought. She caught a glimpse of something in the tiny attic window that made her heart stop. "Jake! Jake! I saw something in there. Someone's in the old Myers house," she cried. Something is watching, she thought. Jake downshifted and pulled to the side of the road across the street. "Where?" he asked. Lori hid behind Jake's body as she pointed to the attic. "Up there. Up there. I think I saw a face looking at us. It wasn't a jack-o'-lantern like the other night. It was moving. What if he's come back?" Jake stared at the tattered curtain blowing through the window until his eyes went out of focus. "I don't see anything. It was probably just a shadow from the trees on the curtain. This old place can play tricks on your eyes, Lori." Lori protested. "No, I really saw something, Jake. I really did. I think." Jake turned around and touched her face. "Maybe you did," he said. "But if you're suggesting that we actually go inside that spook house to check it out, I really like you, but you're crazy." Lori giggled nervously. "No way. Let's just get out of here." She watched the attic window, feeling more than a little uneasy as they drove away. At the end of the road, Jake pulled over and grabbed the mail out of the box. Then they slowly drove up the long dirt road to his place, which was nestled against the forest on the hillside. White fences surrounded several acres of property beside the house. Lori commented, "Wow, it's really isolated up here. Doesn't it freak you out sometimes being so close to the Myers house?" Jake turned off the ignition and helped Lori off the bike. "Not really. I can play my music as loud as I want, and no one ever complains. Not even Michael Myers." Michael Myers. The name stuck in her mind. The horrible stories. "What about your parents?" Lori asked. Jake shrugged. "They're importers, so they go out of the country a lot. Right now they're in Japan. They just stock the freezer with pizza and leave me to run the place. I don't really mind. I'm used to being alone." Lori smoothed her hair. "Well, you're not alone now. At least I don't think so," she thought. Jake fished the key from his pocket and smiled at her. "You mean I'm not alone like at this moment, or I'm not alone as in something is going on between us?" "Both," she smiled. "I think. That is, if you want." Jake touched her lips with his fingers and then gave her a kiss. He stepped backward to stare at her creamy skin and rosy cheeks. "You're for real, aren't you, Lori?" "Oh, yes," she said breathlessly. He smiled nervously as he leaned against the door and it pushed open. Then his expression suddenly became serious. "Hey, that's weird. I swear I locked the door this morning." "I always lock the door." Lori backed away from the porch. "Could someone have come over who has a key?" Jake peeked inside and whispered, "No, the only one who has a key is my older brother, but he's away at college in Los Angeles right now. Lori, this is really strange. Stay out of here while I check it out. Lori paced back and forth on the porch as Jake disappeared inside. She caught a glimpse of the old Myers house down the road, sending chills down her spine. She was sure she'd seen a face in there. Jake, is everything okay? She called. Timidly, Lori opened the door and let herself in. She gawked at the unusually creepy decor of the house. Tribal African masks hung on the walls among mounted heads of deer, buffalo, and a bear. They seemed to watch her every move with dead, glassy eyes. She stepped across the hardwood floor and peered up to the staircase. Jake, she called softly. Where are you? Where are you, Jake? A low, vicious growling came from behind a closed door upstairs. The hair on the back of Lori's neck stood on end. Not daring to take another step in any direction, she stood frozen, staring at the closed door. Jake, she called. The door creaked open and Lori sucked in her breath. Jake stood at the top of the stairs wearing a hideous wolf mask, clutching a large bag. Lori laughed at herself for having been so scared just a moment ago. That is the ugliest thing I've ever seen, she said. Jake pulled off the mask and walked down the stairs. I didn't know you were in here. I was just getting together some stuff to use as props at the Scream Factory, he explained. Lori took a deep breath. You almost made me scream, she said. She looked around nervously, remembering that they'd found the door unlocked. Jake followed her glance. Don't worry, he assured her. There's nothing missing from the house, and there's no one in here but us. I checked it out. I must have rushed out this morning and just forgot to lock up. He opened the bag. Hey, come here. Look at this. I've got all kinds of masks and old clothes in here that we can use to decorate. Let's get out of here. Less, she agreed. Lori held the heavy bag of decorations in her lap, sandwiched between their bodies. Jake started the bike and they drove down the road away from the creepy Myers house. Lori felt relaxed and happy. Although it hadn't been spoken outright, she knew that she and Jake were now a couple. She squeezed him tightly as they rounded a turn on Old Ranch Road, which was lined with tall green trees. Lori breathed in the fresh air, the fresh, cool air. Orange and brown leaves tumbled behind the motorcycle as they sped down the road. Lori tilted her head backward and watched the tops of the pine trees rush by. Suddenly a loud, crisp crack filled the air, followed by a creaking groan. Lori's eyes followed a tree leaning toward the road, and realized a split second later that the towering pine was falling in front of the speeding motorcycle. Jake, look out! She screamed. Jake's body went rigid in alarm as the giant tree crashed to the ground, 100 yards in front of them, blocking the entire road. Jake hit the brakes and the motorcycle swerved sideways towards the shoulder, the distance to the wall of branches before them closing in at lightning speed. Lori screamed and covered her eyes as the bike leaned terrifyingly toward the ground, everything feeling as if it were happening in slow motion. A cloud of tire smoke and dust billowed up around them. Lori opened her eyes and stared in disbelief at the giant tree that stretched across the entire width of the road. What happened? There was bright red blood all over the back of Jake's leather jacket. She screamed, her eyes wide with horror, when she saw that her white blouse was soaked with it. Oh my God! Oh my God! Somebody help us! She cried, her voice echoing down the desolate road. Jake got off the bike and touched the blood on Lori's shirt. Shh, it's okay, he told her, licking his fingers. It's just the fake blood that was in the bag. It must have burst when we stopped so suddenly. I had almost a gallon in there. We're not hurt. It's okay. Lori shook her head in disbelief. The sight of the blood, real or not, made her stomach turn. They had almost crashed. Oh, God, that was so scary. We almost crashed, Jake. Jake took off his helmet and stretched his shaky legs, which had tensed up when he was trying to stop. He couldn't understand what had just happened. Jake ran his fingers through his hair in some sort of a daze as he followed the tree to its end. Lori, come here, he shouted. Lori followed him into the clearing from where the tree had fallen. She took a sharp, deep breath. Fresh sap oozed from the neatly cut tree stump. She screamed, It was cut! Somebody did this on purpose! In her mind, she was screaming, Someone tried to kill us! Jake searched the woods with nervous eyes. Let's go. We'll report this when we get into town, but let's go now. Jake wheeled the motorcycle around the tree. He had to kick-start the bike a couple of times before the engine groaned on. Lori was trembling with fear. She quickly picked up the sticky bag of fake blood and hopped on the back of the bike, frightened and anxious to get out of there. Okay, this has been Chapter 7, 8, and 9 of Halloween the Scream Factory. I actually hate ending it there tonight. But since this book is a lot shorter than the Black Flame novels, I'm wanting to do 3 chapters at a time. So we keep the book last as long as possible. Because this is a really good book, even though it is shorter, I'm really enjoying it. I'm getting good feedback on it, so I know you guys are enjoying it. And I can't wait to see where it goes. We're getting close to the halfway point of the novel, and things seem to be picking up. I'll be honest with you, I thought that this Jake guy was responsible for like the pumpkin in the locker and all that, but that tree just got cut down right in front of him. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I'll be back tomorrow with 3 more chapters or more. We'll just have to see how it goes of Halloween the Scream Factory. Until then, thanks for listening. Thanks for visiting the 80 Slasher Library. Be sure to get those books in on time. The late fees are killer.